Melanie, you had surgery for metastatic cancer of your lymph nodes in the summer of 2023, correct?
Yes, they were all,
Yeah, and so
9 were dissected.
right, and so that was almost 2 years ago now. And after the surgery, you had a drain tube inserted, for into the
Lymph
wound, so
nodes.
that into the lymph node, so that the wound could drain. And now you found something in this drain tube that probably never before, who knows, in world history, probably nobody had ever seen before. What was that?
When I first seen the clot, it was in about the middle of the drain, maybe within a week of having my drain. Initially, it drained properly. It was kind of the red fluid, and I had even...
So Melanie, when you say clot, what do you mean? Why a clot? And
well, eventually my drain line completely filled up, coming all the way from the side where it exited, and then about, maybe 10 inches. And I first noticed just a little white thing floating around in there. And so you're supposed to strip the drain every day. So I stripped it and I squeezed it through the little tube and it clogged it. So eventually I got it down into the bulb, and I went outside and I took a video of it, and it was kind of a fibroid structure, and it was tiny, and I've got pictures of that, and I've got the video where I'm outside kind of swishing it around trying to get a good look at it. And so I watched, and day after day I had that drain for like 26 days. That's very unusual. I couldn't get it to the right amount of fluid a day. It had to be 30 mils or less a day before my surgeon would take it out. So a week went by. Then on the second week, I started feeling sick. I had made 2 emergency room visits. I started feeling sick, and I am in physical therapy, and I started that morning. I looked at my drain and I noticed that it was clogged. There was inches of this white clot in my surgery drain line. And so that day at physical therapy, I had my therapist, I said, listen, I said, I can't really get a photo. Plus, I can't look at the part where it comes out from under my arm. I said, could you please just take a photo for me? And she lifted up the flap and she looked and she said, oh my God, Melanie, it's packed. She said packed. Oh. And I went home, got a few things, got Scott, and I went to the emergency room. And so I've got pictures of that clot. You can see the whole drain line is clear. It's just a solid white fiber clot, white clot. And you could see it kind of had as soon as I looked at the photo, I knew I had seen that before. And so I knew it from the Died Suddenly documentary with Richard Hirschman, the embalmer. And I went home and I scrubbed through that video and I found the spot where instantly I recognized that clot, and I screenshot it, and I did a side-by-side showing on the left side. Here's a screen grab from the documentary Died Suddenly that had over 20 million views the first week it came out. And then on the right is a photo that morning that my physical therapist took. And so I have photos of it where you don't see the red shirt. And then she said, well, it's kind of hard to see. And she took the red shirt and she put it up underneath the clot so that you could get a better image of it. So that's the clot that I posted in a comment maybe a month ago that on X to the embalmer, Richard, that you interviewed just a few weeks ago and mentioned me in your video.
I know, and we were. So Richard told me, he got the most fascinating picture sent to him on X. in reply to his posting of the interview that I did with him. And I said, wow, yeah, share it with me. I want to see this. And he did. And I couldn't believe it. And then we got in touch, and Richard got in touch with you. And that's how we ended up, you know, and now I'm interviewing you,
But
which I'm really grateful for.
I've been posting that for, well, it was exactly 2 years ago today that I got my mammogram results back. So it will be exactly 2 years tomorrow, the 9th. I made a video where I was crying. And you know, so that
but you posted it on Facebook, right? You posted it on Facebook.
Well, yeah. So that was 2023. I was diagnosed in April 2023. And then, so when I was diagnosed at, for the mammogram, that morning, it was about 23 days to surgery. When I got, when I got the MRI information the morning for surgery for my metastatic invasive ductal carcinoma and metastatic cancer to my lymph nodes, that morning they took me down to radiology. And what they do is they numb you up and they run a wire through the breast. And so that when the surgeon gets it open and he's looking, he sees exactly what areas he wants to target. And so I'm laying there and the radiologist is talking and he's like, well, 2 millimeters to the left, 1 to the right. And the other guy goes, well, then what's that? And I said, oh my God, is there more? And sure enough, they didn't tell me. 5 hours later, when I went into surgery, I laid there for 5 hours. I guess I got bumped, and I laid there in misery at the hospital before I had surgery. And and there was 2 areas that they were targeting to remove, and sure enough, they pulled out 4. So within 28 days from when I got my breast cancer mammogram results, which was 2 years ago, 28 days later in surgery, my breast cancer had doubled from 2 to 4. And when I started chemotherapy and then transitioned into radiation, the radiation oncologist guy didn't really have the report like how nuclear it was yet. And so he and I just sat there and talked a little bit, and he looked at me and he said, Melanie, you're my first turbo cancer patient. And he knew, and he had seen the Died Suddenly documentary. I have got some good doctors that are taking it seriously, and I finally have a good primary doctor that's noting my vaccine injury.
So this radiology, there was a radiologist who told you that you were his first turbo cancer patient.
He said,
did he talk? Did he say anything about it being caused by the vaccine, by the mRNA shots?
He said that it probably can't be ruled out. You know, he
okay, right.
He knew everything. He was fascinated. I showed him everything because I'd been keeping photos of everything, because the cancer came in 2023. You got to understand, I got sick immediately in 2021. I was in the very first batch for first responders. I took the Moderna vaccine January 7th, 2021, and I immediately.
But Melanie, I want to stop you here, because before we get there, we're going to get there. I want to ask you a couple of questions about this clot that you discovered in your drain tube. So first of all, I would like to know, how many days after you got the drain tube, how many days after did you discover the first little white fibrous structure floating around in this drain tube?
Let me look at the date on my photo. 1 second. June 14th, 2023. Here, let me share this screen with you. 1 second. So let me show, you want to see what it Well, let me show you this. This is the next day after I go to the emergency room. All right, here we go. So let me see here. Can you see that?
Yes, I can. I can.
So June 14th, 2023 at 8:45 a.m. that next morning after I go to the emergency room. So remember, I'm at physical therapy and she takes a photo and I'm horrified. And so I go home, I grab Scott, we go to the emergency room and I have a picture of me sitting in the emergency room too. So they came in, they looked at it. Remember, it's still the same. They came in and they looked at it and it's still this because it's just a few hours later. See, this is June 13th that morning. So let's go back. So this May 20th, the first time that I started looking at my drain right here.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, there's it. Yeah, I can see there's a white
So
little
I
clot.
had the drain like this had to have been in the beginning. Let me see. June 7th.
So it sounds like you didn't. So it sounds like you didn't observe these white structures immediately after surgery, but it took at least days.
This is 3 weeks. This is
so and then the lot. Yes, and this is okay. Yep. Okay.
When I first seen it, here's the original. Here's the one I told you that I squeezed through.
This is my drain from my cancer.
So this is the very first one.
Way too long because it keeps draining and it got clogged when I was trying to empty it through that little tiny spout. And this is what clogged it.
It gets clearer once.
Okay. Yeah, I can see it clearly, and that was was May.
Right there.
Yep. There's a little bit of blood on it, and otherwise it's just this weird
right
fibrous.
There, Cornelia. There's a live one for you right there.
Yep, I see it. So that was when you saw this for the very first time.
I've got June 13th, 2023.
Okay. Okay. So that was weeks after your surgery. And then so you kept observing it, of course, seeing this unusual thing that reminded you of what you had seen in the Died Suddenly movie. And how did it grow over time?
Well, you can see it coming all the way out. So it starts, it's packed. She looked underneath.
Yes.
This bandage. Look at, you can see it. Let me zoom in.
Yeah, it's totally crowded in there. I mean, it's just full of that stuff. The entire drain tube is filled with this white,
see it?
Fibrous structure. Yes, I see it. And so that was weeks after you saw that first little one that you were able to still squeeze through into the bulb.
Here's when they first started. That's the one I think I tried to, that's the one I think I squeezed through, Cornelia, right here.
Okay.
Let's look through these real quick. So look, so you can see a big one up here coming down towards the drain, see? And then here's another one back behind it. So this is the one I squeezed through. So look.
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
See, I'm getting ready to squeeze it through.
Yeah.
I'm freaked out.
And of course, and you were able to still squeeze that one through because it was so small. When it got bigger, that wasn't possible anymore, correct?
And I told them that at the emergency room. So what they did is they took the big clot that with the red background, and they took turns breaking it up and squeezing it down to the bottom. And I'll show you what that looked like. And the next morning, I drained some fluid from my clot. So this is what they did. They brought this all the way down. They squeezed it all the way down. Look at here, it's coming down. I'm just still growing it at this point. Look at.
Right.
I'm still growing it. Right. Look at.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I squeezed it through. And then we watched that video already. So now this is all still in there. See it?
Yep. And you couldn't
we
squeeze
know
that
how
through.
these prions right here fold, because a couple days later we've got the picture from physical therapy where you can clearly see the you know that. See?
Yes. Yeah, I can see that.
That.
No.
They're right
Yeah,
there, the
right.
best shot. And these little
Yes.
spikes, you see those in the Richard Embalmer Hirschman in his videos, in his photos.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So when you went to the emergency room, did you go to
right here?
that?
Health St. Joseph's Medical Center, June 13th, 2023 at 11:44 a.m. after physical therapy. And so they came in and they squeezed them. And the next day, look, I've got better photos.
What was the purpose of squeezing it down? Did they hope to squeeze it through into the bulb, or what? Why did they do it?
No, I told them, I said, whatever you do, don't try to squeeze that through. I said, I just did that the other day and I clogged it. I told them, I said, I had to suck in tap water just to get it to come back out. See, there's a little spout right here over on the other side that I have to empty this over here, and I clogged it. And so I told them, I said, don't squeeze it through. And this is what it looked like the next day, June 14th. They had broken it all up and squeezed it down to the bottom. And that morning I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to strip the drain of all the liquid and I'm going to see what happens. So I stripped the drain of all the liquid. See, look, I'm holding it back here and I strip it all down so that I can watch and see what happens to these clots. And I stripped that much down. And then I let go and look at, all of a sudden the clot expanded and they started jumping around inside the tube.
They started jumping around inside the tube. So they were elastic. They were like an elastic band.
Like an elastic band.
Right.
Like a gush of suction and stuff must have came back through and they stretched out. This is the next morning. Remember, we just looked at them. They were all packed down at the bottom.
Yeah, and they stretched.
See that?
Yep. Yes.
So that you can see they broke them all up. Look at, you see all the corners now? Look at all the corners.
So yeah, I do. They broke it into pieces. So, when you went to the emergency room and you saw one emergency doctor or several? You said there were several trying. So did they, first of all, I would like to know, what was their reaction when they saw this?
Well, I was trying to tell them my story because I've been through this so many times where you try to hurry up and talk fast because you know how they are. They come in, they say, oh, everything looks fine. And then they just leave. And so they, the one doctor, and I was feverish and I was sick. And this was my second visit to the emergency room, and they took turns just coming in and breaking it up. And the one doctor reached over and he grabbed my pulse, and I could feel my heart was just racing, and it was so terrifying. You can hear even in my voice now. It's I don't know if you can still see these photos, but I knew exactly.
Yes, I can.
I knew exactly what they were, and I'm just scared to death.
Right. And you knew because you had watched the movie Died Suddenly, but these emergency room doctors probably hadn't watched the movie. So what did they say? Did they say anything about to you?
All I could do is no. They said they didn't have any answers. I was basically telling them what it was, is how the visit went.
Oh, wow. So they looked at it and they stared at it and didn't say anything?
What they said was, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to pull the drain because you have an appointment on June 15th to have it removed. So that was the following Thursday. This was I usually seen her on Tuesday, so it would be 2 days for me to get the drain removed, and they figured that it wasn't infected, and I had been living with it for so long that it probably wasn't an issue, and so they just sent me home.
So now in these notes that we're seeing here, these progress notes, it says
This is
Melanie, so that's the 15th of June. And that was written by the surgeon?
Yeah.
Oh no, it's not by the doctor, I mean.
Yes, this is when I go to get it removed. And he says right here, she has had some issues with fibrous debris within it clogging it. Melanie's here to have her axillary drain from her axillary dissection. A follow-up, she's had issues with fibrous debris within it clogging it. Not very good, right?
Yes, and that is, so it sounds like she has had some issues with fibrinous debris within it clogging it. It sounds like, well, it sounds like they see that every day. Oh yeah, she has some issues with this kind of debris floating around in her, clogging up her drainage tube. But I mean, this is kind of weird way to describe it, because they had never seen that before in all likelihood.
He didn't want anything to do with it. When he said, take a deep breath and counted 1, 2, 3 and yanked it out of me, he wasn't having anything. He just turned to the garbage, reached over and threw it in. He didn't look at it. He didn't send any of it to pathology. He didn't tell me, he wouldn't even let me look at it. He didn't even talk about it. When I walked in, he was just cool and calm and casual, and that was it. And then he put a bandage over it and told me that, you know, you can probably expect some more leaking coming out of it. He didn't try to look and see if the clot was still coming out from under my side. He sent me on my way, and he left the room, and I was still there, and I was getting dressed. And after I got dressed, Scott was with me, and I wanted to walk over to the garbage and look in there and see what it looked like. And I got almost to the other side of the room. It was a small room, and the nurse popped her head back in, and I said, okay, yeah, I'm ready. I'm coming out. And so I just got scared, and I didn't do anything. I didn't look at it or anything.
Well, that's very interesting. So he came in, he yanked the drain tube out of you. He pulled the white fibrous clot out of the drainage tube, correct? And you say he didn't even really look at it and took it and threw it away. Did you ask him to please show it to you because you were interested in seeing it?
He just did it so fast, and no.
Yeah, so you did it really fast, and then you just threw it away without even examining it, without any further ado. He just threw it away. So it sounds like he was scared of it. Pull it out.
He wasn't having any of it. He was also the one that did my fistulotomy. I had an anal fistula that I developed early after I got vaccinated, and so he was my surgeon for that one too. And so I had the anal fasciotomy, and while I was recovering from that is when I found out I had breast cancer. And so I had been telling him that it was from the vaccine for months and months and months. So
I see. So you already knew him. He knew that you thought it was caused by the mRNA shots, and he didn't want to hear any of that.
Nope.
What did he say how did he react to it when you told him your suspicion?
He was on he didn't chart it, I don't think. I would have more flare-ups come, and he would just tell me the same, down. So I had I remember now how he reacted. So immediately after they pulled the tube, I filled up with fluid, and you can read in the note, read what he says. So look what he says. He says, drain is serose output. being this far out from surgery, I felt that the risk of infection, if we let it go any longer, outweighs the risk of developing seroma. So I pulled it. I've had that seroma drained twice since I've
So
had
what
the
is, Melanie, what is seroma? I don't know that word.
So I have pockets of fluid. I have one in my breast and I have one in my lymph nodes. And
Okay.
so so I developed a seroma, and my side, the next morning he told me just wear a pad in your bra, and that next morning I coughed and a bunch of fluid came out, and I knew it was
Okay.
bleeding and I had a pad on, but a bunch of fluid came out, and
Okay.
and this is a week after he pulled it out. You can see in this photo on July 5th, and that could be a screenshot. Let's see what the date on this, July 7th. So no, that's right. July 5th, I took a photo, or I had Scott take a photo, and you could still see that clot sticking out of my side.
Oh, so wow. So wait, this white thing there, that is the clot that is inside you.
Yes.
It's sticking out.
Yes. So
Okay.
I go back to I went to the emergency room because he went on vacation after he pulled my tube. So I had went to the emergency room, and so now I'm in physical therapy for lymphedema because my side swells up. I got a seroma. I've got fluid in there that didn't drain properly because the tube was clogged. And so
Yes.
now I'm in physical therapy for lymphedema because my whole side fills up with a pocket of fluid. And we already know that there was a big, long white clot growing out of me.
Yes, yes. And I can see on the photo how swollen your torso is, you know, with the fluid.
And you can see that incision just keeps getting fuller and fuller. And all this appeared after. And so now I'm in physical therapy for lymphedema, and I have her chatting with my surgeon. So you said, how did he react? I only talked with him through my lymphedema physical therapist. And so she was taking photos and charting everything.
So what did he say when he did? Do you know how he reacted to these photos?
He didn't do anything about it. Nothing.
Okay. Okay. Let's go back to the beginning of all this, because you got 4 Moderna shots in 14 months. And your first Moderna shot was
right here, January 7th, 2021.
January 7th, 2021. So it was really early. And then when did you get your second shot?
February 3rd.
February 3rd. And the third shot, the booster. So that would have been the first booster. When did you get that one?
Well, the first one is January 7th, 2021, because I'm a healthcare worker. So you have to have been like a frontline worker. So this batch, my first batch and my second batch, were given to me by my county health department. CWC stands for Crow Wing County. And it says right here, Crow Wing County Public Health, PH.
Right.
And
okay, that's in
go ahead.
Minnesota, right? Yes. Okay.
Brainerd,
okay.
Minnesota. I'm 2 hours north of Minneapolis.
Okay. And then you got the Moderna booster shot when?
I took a booster in November 11th, 2021.
November 11th, so the same year. So you had 3 shots, 2 at the beginning and then the booster shot at the end of the same year, 2021. And the 4th shot, was that a second booster shot?
Yes.
When was that?
Right here, I took a screenshot of it this morning. May 19th, 2022.
Okay, May 19th. So you had these 4 shots and you developed, yeah, tell me what happened after the very first shot, the one that you got on January 7th, 2021.
So immediately after, I started having some pain in my rectum, and I had just had a colonoscopy done. So I just kind of thought to myself, oh, maybe he irritated a hemorrhoid that I've had for, I don't know, like since I was 20. Just a little tiny hemorrhoid. I didn't think anything of it. Then by May or June, I started developing a lesion on my vulva, on like the floor of my groin. And we were doing a lot of telehealth at that time. And so I thought maybe it was just a herpes outbreak, because I've had that virus for like 30 years. And maybe once a year, maybe less than that, I would just get a little tiny little spot. And 5 days later, it would be healed. And so every time I would go to the bathroom, I just had this burning. And so I was living with the anal fissure, and I thought it was just a hemorrhoid, and I called the doctor.
Right, and you know, because it was COVID, you couldn't, it was, yeah, it was 2021, you couldn't just go to a doctor.
Right.
And you did telehealth, and that's not really ideal, right?
Right.
For a
They told me,
telehealth
use the
visit.
creams. It's probably just a hemorrhoid, it'll go away, diet, all that. So I had the anal fissure that I thought was a hemorrhoid, and then I was diagnosed November of 2021. Or excuse me, December of 2021. Remember, I took the booster in November. So in December
Yes.
2021, I was biopsied for an autoimmune disease with no cure called Lichen sclerosus. So
Lichen sclerosus.
Lichen sclerosus. And it's an autoimmune disease that decimates your vagina and your vulva. And it does affect the anus. So really what happened is my lichen sclerosus started in my anus, and then it developed through my vulva. And by 2022, I had right here, October 2022, I had developed a Lipschutz ulcer. And
Right.
in May of 2022, I had taken another booster. So
okay, so let me stop you there, right there.
Yeah.
And because so in December 2022, you were diagnosed with this autoimmune disease called Lichen sclerosus.
Lichen sclerosus.
Oh, sorry, lichen sclerosus. At that point, did you suspect that the mRNA shots might have anything to do with it? Did any doctor suspect any such thing?
No. Nobody even talked about it, even my doctor, because and I was researching it, but the doctors didn't talk about it because they were vaccinated too. And it wasn't until I saw an OBG specialist, the lady that diagnosed it, and he told me this was a Lipschutz ulcer. So when I Google searched Lipschutz ulcer, I discovered that there was a study about prepubescent girls that were recently vaccinated and developed Lipschutz ulcers. The exact same clitoral ulcers that I was experiencing. And the first one that I had was horrible. They kept swabbing it for herpes, and I kept telling them, I know what that is. It's not that. Initially, that summer, when we thought it was herpes, and it wasn't, before I was diagnosed, they prescribed acyclovir. And so that didn't do anything. And they said, well, here, try this, try valcyclovir, a stronger version. So now another month, 2 months goes by. That didn't help it. And then finally my doctor says, well, here's a vaginal antibiotic. Jam this up there every night for 10 days. And that didn't help. And so then that's when they biopsied it. And I had developed lichen sclerosus.
So, okay, so two things. So first of all, you said that you Googled it, you researched and you found out that there were quite a few girls, you said relatively young girls who developed this clitoris, this ulcer, or that developed this, what did you call it?
Lichen sclerosus.
This Lipschutz ulcer.
Yes.
Right. And they were pre-puberty girls that developed this?
Yes. And
I mean, so it sounds to me like, is this correct that this is something very rare? I mean, I've never heard of such a thing. I didn't know this disease existed anyway, but I haven't heard that this is a problem with girls in particular having such a thing.
When I Googled it and they said, I can find right here, acute genital, it's at NIH, National Institutes. Acute genital ulcers have been associated with various pathogens such as Epstein-Barr virus. I tested positive for Epstein-Barr virus when all this was going on. She kept swabbing it for herpes. And finally I went to another clinic and this ulcer oozed for like 5 weeks. It took for it to heal. It was the most painful thing ever in my life. And I went to another clinic and I thought, oh, great. You know what? She got a good swab that morning. And she sent it off to Mayo Clinic for test it for PCA testing or PCS, I forget. And she felt like she had to send me a letter that said, oh, dear Melanie, I just want to let you know that your swab for the herpes virus is negative. You don't have to take your VAERSAware. And I was so upset. I was pissed. But it was when I Google searched it and I found Lipschutz ulcers. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Right here, acute genital ulcers known as Lipschutz ulcers, Apathos ulcers. This is all in my medical record.
Okay, there we go.
So
acute genital.
Oops, sorry. There we go. Acute genital ulcers, also known as Lipschutz ulcers, Apathos ulcers, or acquired genital ulceration characterized by painful vulvar ulcers typically occur in non-sexually active adolescent females. These ulcers, whether multiple, manifest as deep, sharply demarcated lesions with fibrous coatings or grayish exude. And then right here, including Epstein-Barr virus and something else. This is exactly what happened to me. And then right here, so it says a 37-year-old woman presented a COVID-19 over the previous month. She experienced a COVID-19 infection as well. So like I said, I had found a study where 12-year-old girl, here it is, right here. COVID-19 vaccination, a trigger of acute genital ulcers, and in an immunocompromised adolescent case. Case study reviewed 12-year-old girl with acute genital ulcers after vaccination.
Which date is that article?
March 2024.
Okay.
But
okay. So that's about a year ago. But it happened way earlier. I mean, yeah, because when you researched it, that was years before then. So the second question I have is, you said that when I asked you, did anybody at that point when they diagnosed you with this lichen sclerosus, with the lichen sclerosus, and you said no, the doctors, nobody talked about that, and then you said because they were vaccinated too. So why do you think they didn't talk about any potential connection to the vaccine?
I don't know.
Why do you think the reason was that they were vaccinated?
Nobody knew. I had to tell everybody everywhere I've went since September 2021, when I officially became permanently disabled. September 2021, when I found, when I finally was seeing the doctor, and she suggested to start taking photographs. And so every time I would get a lesion or an ulcer or something, I documented it and I photographed it. And I have all the photos. And so every doctor that I would see and every visit that I went to, I was telling the same people over and over. I was telling them what was going on. No, even to this day, I had a ultrasound. I've been having pain in my abdomen the last couple months, and I had an ultrasound last week, and the ultrasound lady had never even heard of turbo cancer. So I'm telling everybody everywhere I go, nobody knows.
Right. So in December, after your first booster, your third mRNA shot, when you were diagnosed with lichen sclerosus, did you suspect any connection with the vaccine, with the mRNA shots?
In what date?
That was December 2021.
No, not yet. It wasn't until I got the Lipschutz ulcer. And that was...
And then you researched, it.
Because I would take another dose in May of 2022.
Yeah.
And
yes, makes sense. Yeah.
And it's October 2022 when I get the Lipschutz ulcer.
Yeah, makes sense. No, I mean, you wouldn't have taken another booster if you had any suspicions. So you researched. So you basically researched it. You found out yourself that there is a connection, that other girls had the exactly same thing, and that it happened after the vaccination, the mRNA shot. Okay, so now I would like you to tell me about the batch, the two first shots that you got, the two first Moderna shots. What batch did they come from?
So if you go to howbadismybatch.com, and I've got my 4 vaccines here. 010. Okay, so this is my first one. And my first one is the most toxic batch of all the VAERS universe, according to Albert from VAERSAware.com. So my first batch is famous. It's 032H20A.
And who is Albert? Albert from
VAERSAware.com, correct.
So tell me a little bit about what he has done.
Well, he messaged me a couple months ago. I made my first Substack, and he messaged me a couple months ago. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can. Mm-hmm.
And he said, I noticed your first shot, 032H20A, is the most toxic lot in the entire VAERS universe. He said, I've called it the Puerto Rico lot because the majority of its deaths happened in Puerto Rico. Cornelia, this lot number killed 25 people just in Puerto Rico. And then he goes on to say, I've written so many Substacks and made so many videos on 032H20A. It's the most toxic because it's known that only 98,000 doses were ever shipped. And this is a fact that he got per the information, the Freedom of Information request that Aaron Siri did. Because remember when they, when we all first started noticing that the vaccine is making people sick and it can be such a different host and array of things, they subpoenaed Pfizer for all the information. And Pfizer at that time tried to say, oh, we're not going to give you that information for 50 years. And a judge said, no, you have like 40 days or something to get the information. So when the
Yes.
information came out, people like Albert were grabbing the data, and with his accounting background and being able to build dashboards and run the numbers and look at the actual lot number and the doses and do all the calculations of adverse adverse reactions, office visits, total adverse events, total SAE is I forget. I have a lot of brain fog and memory issues, Cornelia. But anyway,
Yeah, no worries.
if you take my first shot, and which is my batch number 032H20A, and you look at the percent of the death based on the fact that only 97,000 doses were out, it has the highest percent of death and toxicity.
Right. And this is based, so this information of the toxicity of the batches is based on the reports that were filed in the VAERS system. Correct. The vaccine adverse reporting system, and not on some sort of analysis of what was actually in these shots. It's just purely based on what was reported. Now we know that VAERS, it's voluntary, and many doctors and many people never reported adverse effects. So we know that there is an underreporting factor. The estimate.
Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Melanie?
Now I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
It's underreported.
It's underreported, and yes, and it's widely underreported. So it's between, like, some people say maybe, so what people often use as an average underreporting factor is something like 30 or 40, but there are people who say, no, it's more like 100.
Right. Yeah. Thomas Haviland thinks that the number is somewhere around 30 is what he said, but some people think that it's well, Albert, who did this dashboard, he's an expert on this lot. He's got a bunch of videos. He's got some things, but God, I hate when I lose my thought. It's underreported, and I gave him my number for my VAERS, and I didn't include any of those in this but he took my VAERS information, and what he did is he checked the VAERS, and my report never made it on the 18th month. You know what? Let me just look at this here. VAERS.
So Melanie,
here's my VAERS.
Tell me what VSafe is in case people don't know what.
Right here. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So the VSafe is the app that you install after you go and get your COVID-19 shot. So remember, I got it at the county health department. So it would text you every day, and it asks you how you're feeling. And they do this up to 18 months after you get your dose.
So interesting. So after you got your shot, you were told to download the VSafe app.
Yep. And
then they texted you every single day for 18 months asking you how you were feeling.
They text you every day. Like, if you see my screen, I think at the 42 day, and then they do weekly.
Okay.
And then my last one that I did, it was a 6-month health check-in. You see this on my screen?
Yes.
And then at the bottom, I listed lichen, sclerosis, anal fissure, Lipschutz ulcer, fatigue, weight loss, and more. And I hadn't gotten cancer yet because they don't follow you. The VSafe and the VAERS reports are such a bad example of what's really going on with people's health in the vaccine world. Look at VSafe has never reached back out to me. They don't have any idea that I have cancer. And when I completed the 18-month mark check-in, and I listed these things that had happened to me. The next screen on this app said, there was a checkbox, Cornelia, and it said, do you want to report this to VAERS? And I said, yes. And so I'm supposed to be a dual registrant. I'm supposed to have my VSafe report, and it should have been copied over into the VAERS report. And Albert from VAERSAware confirmed that it's not. And he and I are in the process of putting my VAERS report together. And
okay, so so Melanie, that's very interesting, because it also means that none of your doctors, the many doctors that you saw, ever filed a VAERS report for you.
Nope. And I said to my doctor after that Lipschutz ulcer came, and this young doctor, I'm not going to say her name, I guess, but she left, she quit, and she knew, and I would cry. And then she was the one that called me that night that I saw that in my app that it was BIRAD5, and I Google searched BIRAD5 and it said probable malignancy. She called me, and I was just sitting there staring at the TV, and there was nothing on, and everything was quiet, and it was completely blank. And she called me at like 6:00 at night, and I was just sitting there stunned. And she knew, and she knew instantly that this was from the vaccine, but they don't say anything. And I said to her, I said, well, are you going to make a VAERS report? Then she said, no, we don't do that. You'll
wait a minute. So first, she said, no, we don't do that.
Yeah.
What the heck does that mean? They don't do that? They're supposed to do that. They don't do that. So that's like the department policy. Nobody in the department is allowed to file a VAERS report. That's incredible.
She said, we don't.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So we don't do that. Well, wow, my goodness. You said, Melanie, you said that when you talked to her on the phone that night, that she knew it was from the mRNA shots you had received, but she didn't say it. So how did you know that she knew?
She did start charting that it could be, I think it's in my chart somewhere before she left. And initially, when in 2021, she wasn't my original doctor. I had a male doctor that also has since left that clinic and went and is working down in Minneapolis somewhere now. But nobody, my current doctor right now, she reached out to me even last week in my chart and said, and asked if any of our contacts knew any suggestions of what other doctors are saying.
Right. So Melanie, you said that 25 people, it's known from VAERS, the VAERS data, that 25 people in Puerto Rico who received shots from this toxic batch died from it. Correct? 25 people in Puerto Rico alone.
Puerto Rico.
Okay, and factoring in the underreporting factor, it's probably way more. Now, you also told me when we talked earlier that 100 people in your area, the area where you live in Minnesota, got the shot from this toxic batch. Do you have any idea? So you got two shots from the most toxic batch.
I did. I'm number 1, and if you can see my screen, I'm number 28.
You're number 1 and number 28. Okay, so there are 98 shots left for other people in your area. Do you have any clue what happened to them?
No, they're here somewhere in Brainerd. Somebody in Brainerd took that lot number.
Right. Okay. Okay. So you had this you had the autoimmune disease that was caused by their mRNA shots, and then 2 years later, 2 years and a few months after the first shot, you got your diagnosis of metastatic lymph node cancer.
Yeah, well, I would have surgery, if you can see my screen, I had another big ulcer erupt just above my anus, and they cut it out, and he packed me with gauze, and he sent me on my way. And he tested it for Crohn's disease, and it was negative, and it wouldn't heal properly. And I kept going back to the doctors. Let's see, what is the date on this one? April 2023. Yeah, so that's just a screenshot. So I kept going back to the doctors, and this thing wouldn't heal right. And then finally, I would have on February 17th, 2023, I had major surgery for an anal fistulotomy. So they cut open another big giant portion. And it was while I was recovering from that I got diagnosed with invasive ductal carcinoma and metastatic cancer.
Right.
My lymph nodes.
So these two operations are now about 2 years ago. What has happened since then, and how is your health now?
Well, like I said, I thought I had made a report to VAERS, and I didn't, and so that's very sad. And I also was watching the Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program. If you can see my screen, everybody wants to say, "Oh, I hope you have a lawyer. Oh, I hope you sue," and they don't understand you're not suing anybody. That nobody's going to be held liable for this. I've been continuously sick 50 months, and my hair is fine.
And Melanie, tell me, why is it that you cannot sue anyone? So people tell you, oh, you should sue. You should get some sort of huge compensation, obviously, for what happened to you. Why is it that you cannot sue?
The pharmaceutical companies have protection. And so here's what happened. So because the pandemic was declared an emergency, the only way they could get the vaccine to market was as long as there wasn't another medication on the market that would have been a proper response to the pandemic. And they did have a medication. They had ivermectin, and Dr. Fauci even knew that the ivermectin was a good candidate for this coronavirus, and he knew it, but they hid that so that they could roll out this Moderna vaccine. And I was watching behind the scenes while all this was happening, and Moderna got Pfizer got it from Moderna. They sold, and Pfizer rolled it out. So people say Pfizer and Moderna, and I've heard that the Moderna vaccine has 3 times more mRNA in it than one shot of Pfizer.
That's correct. That's correct.
So I was watching and paying close attention to everything. And you have 1 year. So the countermeasure to the pandemic was a government agency. Not only do we know that the vaccine was developed by the Department of Defense, but the government official the countermeasure to the pandemic was the vaccine. So they got the emergency use authorization, and they rolled out these shots. And if you are injured by a government's countermeasure, there's only one course of action that you can take, and that's the Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program. So I had been waiting, and I was so sick.
Yeah. What you said is absolutely correct. With the EUA, the emergency use authorization, there couldn't be any therapeutic that would work reliably, and of course there were a bunch of them that did. So they suppressed all that, like hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, as you said, and steroids and all, other things. And then the PrEP Act is also really important. The PrEP Act, and many people don't even know about this PrEP Act. It's this acronym stands for Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act. And it sounds like, oh, great, the government is doing something to get us ready and prepared for some sort of emergency. It's actually the exact opposite. It gives complete liability, complete freedom from liability to any vaccine manufacturers, to anybody who has anything to do with these so-called vaccines, these mRNA shots. And so anybody who manufactures it, anybody who transports it, who distributes it, who injects it, anything, everything is covered that has to do with these shots. So there is no liability for anybody who does anything, who produces them or does anything with them. Complete freedom of liability, which is an absolutely insidious act. And it's a catastrophe that this act was ever passed. And most people don't even know that it exists. So the PrEP Act was declared. It has to be declared, which means it becomes effective for a particular disease. And it was declared for COVID in early 2020, so very early on. And countermeasures, by the way, is a military term. That's not a medical term. It's a military term. It's used by the military. And this program here, the CICP, that was created when the PrEP Act was passed, because people said, well, if there's complete freedom from liability for anybody who has something to do with these shots, then where are people going to turn if something goes wrong and they get injured, or maybe somebody even dies? So I said, okay, fine, we need to have something, so we are going to create the CICP thing. But it turns out that this is not, it's just like a joke. It has barely any money in it. Right. There is no due process. Right. You can't really follow what's going on. You can't have a lawyer who represents you. You have no transparency into what they are doing. And I think about 97% of all the claims are rejected.
Only people that they have paid so far are a handful of myocarditis cases. There was a case about 3 weeks ago, a payout of over $1 million. And we don't know anything. We don't know if it was a death. We don't know anything. But this is, what have I been doing? I'm disabled. I was a web designer. I hand code custom HTML websites. That was my gig. I have a bachelor's degree. I've been doing this working from home, in addition to working 3 hours a day in the healthcare industry. So President Trump was still in office when I took my first shot. When my county health department gave me my first shot, President Trump was still in office. And when my county health department injected me, it was January 7th. January 6th was the resurrection. Wait, what was it called? The
riots at the Capitol. Yes, so that was one day afterwards.
Insurrection. So President Trump was still president. So I've been watching this ever since then, and it was my county health department that injected me with the world's most toxic and deadly lot. What are they going to do? What are they going to do for us? Nobody's doing anything. And now I fight lymphedema. Can you see my screen, Cornelia?
Yeah, it's right? Really swollen.
Look,
your arm.
Look, I used to be so healthy. Look what has happened to me. I had to wear a heart monitor last summer, and I didn't know. Nobody tells you anything. These doctors have failed me. I feel like I have a perpetual black cloud. These doctors have failed me, and it took me 2 years to fight disability, but I had to wear a heart monitor because like panic attacks and anxiety over all of this, and I'm financial ruin. My credit cards, I've been living off credit cards for 2 years. I've been sick. All I could do is just sit, and you can see I developed tachycardia 3% of the time, bradycardia 9% of the time. And I went to the cardiologist and he reviewed these results with me. And I remember walking out of because everything's done at my hospital. Fortunate for me, there's a cancer center, less than a mile from where I live. And, everything was convenient for me. But I was walking out and I was thinking what he said, okay, well, during this percentage of the time you were at rest, and at this time you were exercising. And I didn't quite catch it when he said that. When he said I was exercising, and I didn't think about it until I was walking to the car. And I thought to myself, I didn't exercise. These freaking people, nobody's listening. Nobody cares. Nobody's doing anything. There's not, some people are, you have my Albitas and my batch people. You have Albert from VAERSAware. I've got you. I've got Thomas Haviland. I've got now Richard. I'm trying everything I can. I just celebrated being 14 years sobriety in February.
Wow. But Melanie, I wanted to go back to your CICP claim, because this is so important.
Yeah.
When did you file your Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program claim? That's what CICP stands for.
Right. Give me one.
When did you do that?
I think I have a picture of
because that really this miserable thing, this miserable program, the CICP program, that's the only place where you can go when you have been injured by these shots that are for which the PrEP Act has been declared. It's the only thing you can go to.
Okay, I have it on the screen.
Okay.
So you have 1 year. So remember, you have the
wait. You have 1 year. You have one. Meaning what? 1 year after
you use the countermeasure. So that's why.
Oh my God! You have only 1 year.
You have 1 year. That's why they're not doing anything. They're stalling. Everybody that took their last COVID vaccine shot has caught on that it doesn't stop transmission and stopped taking them. And we're sick. There's so many people that are sick. Everybody knows it. But they're waiting. If you didn't file your claim within 1 year, so look at my letter, says May 16th. I took my last shot, May 11th? We'll have to look. But I took my last shot, I think, May 5th, 2022. And remember, in May, I had just been diagnosed with cancer in April. So I waited, and I knew it, and I had the fistula, the anal fistula. So I waited to the last minute to file and make sure that I got my diagnoses.
And you couldn't, you were diagnosed with cancer in April 2023. So almost a year after your last shot. So by the time you developed cancer, the 12 months were almost over already. And when you finally found out about this Lichen sclerosus thing and your ulcer, and that was caused by the mRNA shots, that was also over a year after you got the shots. So this is completely ridiculous. A 1 year cutoff is completely ridiculous, and the only reason that they have it is so that people cannot file claims. That's the only reason.
Everybody's running out of time.
Everybody's running out of time. This is an absolute joke, and it's just adding what is that saying? It's adding insult to injury.
Yes.
And not just insult, because what you have lost you're not just you have lost your life, your quality of life, your health, your job, your income, everything.
The last time they emailed me was in April of 2024. And
that's a year ago. So they had the courtesy of sending you an email a year ago.
They wanted my medical records again. So when you file your claim, you have to give them your medical records for 1 year before you became injured. And for me, that was September 2021. So I had to give them all my records back, going back into 2020. Okay. So I file my claim where I get the receipt of it here, May 2023. In 2024, I called to see what's going on with my claim, and they said they didn't have the records or something. I've got that email, and I had to.
You sent them all the stuff. You sent them all the stuff that they wanted. They wanted tons of stuff, and then they tell you, oh, they don't have it.
I had to do
they
it
lost
again.
it. Oh my God!
I had to give them more. They said, well, we want the current stuff. So,
well, you have no idea if they're lying or not. They might just say, okay, fine, we have all this stuff, but we are going to ask her to send it to us again because she might give up, or she might miss the deadline, or we're just stringing her along. I mean, maybe they're just doing this with everybody, saying, okay, send us your stuff again. We cannot find it anymore. I mean, the whole thing is just so fraudulent, and it's so unbelievably evil what's going on here that it's you barely know what to say. So you got this last letter in this last email in April 2024, and what did they tell you? So first of all, sorry, you sent them all the stuff again. You did that, right? You sent them all the stuff again.
Yeah, let me pull up the email.
So that they couldn't just say, oh, sorry, but you didn't send us your stuff, and no, you can't get anything anyway.
I called a couple weeks ago to check on the status, and they said it's under medical review. But let me pull open my email.
Oh, so wait a minute. So so you called them a couple of weeks ago. You said a couple of weeks ago, and they said it's under medical review. Yeah, I bet it is. Right. I bet they have all their doctors staring at your record since April 2024. Yep. I mean, what does that mean? It's under medical review. What is there to? It's just a subterfuge, they're just making up excuses. So what are they waiting for, and how much longer is this going to take? Do you have any idea?
I think they're waiting for people to run out of time, and they're waiting for people to die.
Waiting for people to die. That's well, you might very well be right. Maybe they're waiting for people to die, and they told you that only because you called them. You had no contact from them since April 2024. So you called them, and they tell you it's under medical review. Did they give you any kind of indication how much longer you would have to wait?
Yep, I'm going to read you the email right now. Amber Johnson. A Johnson 3 at hrsa.gov.
Okay.
Hold on here.
Yeah, I can see it. Okay. So what did she say?
April 30th, 2024. The CIC has received your claim. After the CICP reviews your submission, you will receive a letter in the mail confirming receipt of your claim, providing you with a case number and informing you if any additional documentation is required. If you haven't already, you must arrange to have your providers submit the following medical records before your case can be reviewed. 1, all medical records documenting medical visits, procedures, consultations, and test results that occurred on or after the date of administration or use of the covered countermeasure. And 2, all hospital records, including the admission history and physical examination, the discharge summary, all the physician specialty consultation reports, all physician and nursing progress notes, and all test results that occurred on or after the date of administration or use of the covered COVID countermeasure. And 3, all medical records for 1 year prior to administration or use of the covered countermeasure, as necessary to indicate an injured countermeasure recipient's pre-existing medical history. And
Wow, they're making it really easy for you.
yeah, I had to print a form and I had to take it to every one of my clinics.
Wow.
And a lot of people looked at me, they're like, we don't do that. And I looked at them, I held up the document and I pointed at the top. This is a government agency and it's a big, long United States government Department of Countermeasures. Like it's this big, long form.
Yes.
And I showed them, I said, this is the countermeasure. The vaccine was the countermeasure. Those are my injuries. That's why I'm here. And you have to do this. And it says at the bottom, they'll pay you like $45 for like 6 hours of their time. I said, and they'll pay you for it. And then when they finally seen that, they're like, oh, okay, she's serious. I had to, like I said, everywhere I went, I had to explain everything to everybody. So listen,
Melanie, that's so interesting. So they said when you showed them this thing, they said that they had no idea what it was, and they said, "We are not doing this. We are not doing
we
this
don't
here.
do this." And I said,
we
yes,
don't do this." So I had no clue what it is. And you heard that answer. You heard that answer before, but with the VAERS. So we are not doing this here. So they're also not doing.
Said we don't do that.
So they had absolutely no clue what that was. But that was probably the first time that anybody came with a claim like that to them. They had never seen that before.
Right. And I had to tell everybody I'm vaccine injured, and I was counting months. I started counting at month 18.
Okay. So now if you have no idea what's going to happen next, how many more years you're going to have to wait for these guys to come to make a decision, for these clowns, and do you have any idea what kind of compensation you will receive? Because I have heard that the compensation that you might get eventually is low. And there's one case that you talked about earlier, this 1 million or what it was payout, that was the highest payout ever, and it really surprised me when I heard about it because it was so unusual.
Right. So after she emailed me and I went and I did all the paperwork again, remember, now I had to do this twice.
Yes, you had to do this whole odyssey through the clinics, filling out all the stuff twice.
Make the rounds. So I emailed her July 13th, 2024. I said, hi, Amber. You should have received medical records as I resubmitted requests to my clinics. Also, it says to include a copy of the form, so I'm attaching them now in case the clinics did not read or follow the directions. Please reply with an update on my case. I am severely injured. You can read my story at this link. And that was when I put out the GoFundMe. So listen, so she emails me April 2024. I email her July 2024. I email her November 11th, 2024.
Wait, did you get a response to your July 2024?
And still no response. January 2025.
No response. So you emailed her in November 2020?
The last one is her, and then me.
Okay. Okay. Wow. So, okay. So that's the CICP claim. You got the CCDI claim. That's your Social Security Disability claim. Yeah. That was, what happened to that one?
I won my case fully favorable. I got a really good, well, here's the deal. So I got denied. I filled it out myself. I initially applied myself. Let's see, September 19th. I applied, then I got the fistula 2023. I think when they cut that spot out and then it turned into surgery, I think is when I applied. I don't know for sure because I won my case back to being disabled September 2021, but it was well into 2022, possibly even 2023. But when I applied for disability, I put that I was vaccine injured. And I said, after the first vaccine, I got this. After the second one, I got that. After the third and fourth, I got this, including cancer and everything. And I got denied. And
You got denied.
yes. And so as soon as I got denied, is when I got an attorney to represent me. And they said all along, they don't care how you got injured. I said, he basically was telling me don't even mention the vaccine in the hearing. So I didn't. But I'm sure that administrative law judge that made my decision, I got the letter from her, and I was very credible, and I produced a lot of evidence. And my attorney said to me, they don't care how you got injured.
Interesting. So, it might even be that your first claim was rejected, and in the first claim you mentioned that it was the vaccine. The second claim, your lawyer advised you not even to mention it, so you didn't mention it, and that one was approved. So maybe it's even helpful.
It actually got
not
denied
mention
a
it.
second time with him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I had a certain amount of time to respond, and so the cutoff date was coming, and I wanted them to handle everything. And so they did that. He said, don't worry about it. It's going to be 18 months yet until, the process. It was like 250, it's like 258 days just to get your case processed.
So it was denied a second time, and then the third time it was
October,
accepted.
excuse me, October 22nd was my hearing date, 2024. That's how long all this has taken.
Right. So, when you get Social Security disability payments now, but if you look at, you worked as a website designer, as you just said, you had your own business, you had your own small business, working with clients, designing their websites, and you were successful doing that. So when you look at the income that you have lost because of the injuries and all the disease that happened to you after the shots, how does that compare to the Social Security disability payments you're receiving?
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't have the purpose that designing used to give me. With my injuries and these ulcers and kind of the whole groin thing, it never really settles down. And part of Lichen sclerosus is it decimates your vulva, and so I get ulcers.
So it decimates your vulva, and you never recover from that.
I'm constantly, I always have something going on, and so I just have to sit, and I can't wear anything down there, and pajama bottoms hurt. I have to just sit with two pillows on the outer edge of, I don't sit in the chair behind me. I have a different one, but two pillows on the outer edge of the arms, and just slightly with my knees apart and inclined because of my chronic neck and low back pain. A tombstone fell on me in the cemetery. We talked a bit about that.
Yes.
A monument fell on me. I was climbing on it. I was in junior.
That is an incredible story. You were what? How old were you? 17?
No,
15?
Junior high school, maybe 13, 14.
13. Do you have the picture of this? I mean, that's just like, what? This happened to you too when you were 13? This huge cross fell on you. And when I saw the cross, I said to you, well, how did you even survive? How were you able to survive this?
Well, lucky for me, when I fell backward about 10 feet off the ground, I landed on my back and my arm came over the top of me, and the cross landed on top of me. And it broke both bones in my right arm. It was a double compound fracture. And if my arm wouldn't have been there, it would have just completely collapsed me and crushed me.
It would have crushed your chest. It would have crushed you. Look at this cross. I mean, it's a really big, heavy
And
stone cross.
right.
Why did this thing fall down?
Well, because the guy was born in 1875. He died in 1899. And so this thing was old, right? This is 1983 or something. This thing's old. So, and if you look at this photo, this is after they repaired it, but that's not how it was. When it fell on me, there was just a metal rod sticking out of the bottom of it, and it was just balancing up there, right? So when I went to grab on top of the monument to pull myself up, I was just going to jump down. I pulled it down on top of myself, and this thing probably weighs maybe a cinder block or the size of 2 cinder blocks. It was big. It was the full width and height.
Yeah, it looks very heavy.
But it just missed my head, Cornelia. It just missed my face. I had stitches in my chin where it had caught me.
Oh my God.
It almost hit my head.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's a miracle. It's a miracle you survived this. And this is where you have the lower back pain since then,
Yes.
right?
Right.
Since that injury.
I've
So,
back pain.
you know, I would think, well, tell me, I'm interested to hear this from you. The fact that nobody in charge, nobody responsible for what all the terrible things that have happened to people during COVID, all the disease, the death caused by the mRNA shots. Nobody has been held responsible for all the really horrific suffering, the illness, disease that these shots have brought over the American population. And I'm sure that just this fact that there's no responsibility, that people don't even talk about it. People don't talk about it. There's no discussion about it. It's like it has never happened almost. I mean, everybody knows, of course, but it's like nobody has any desire to go close to it, to talk, to discover what really happened. We don't know. We don't even know what happened. We don't know what the heck happened. We know that it could happen again at any point because the PrEP Act is still in place, and the PrEP Act is the regulatory framework that allowed all this to happen. So it could happen again at any time. And you would think that under these circumstances, people would be really interested in finding out who's responsible. We don't want this to happen ever again. We cannot live in a society that takes away all our civil rights and makes it possible for something tyrannical and horrific to happen. So all this, that there is no accountability, that there's nobody is being brought to justice, no discussion, that must make it so much harder to come to terms to what has happened to you.
Well, what's happening, like I said, I've got a doctor now that's kind of finally charting that I'm vaccine injured, and I even got her to, I've been sick, right? I've had this pain in my abdomen. I've got ear ringing now. I've got like this lichen on my scalp. I'm itchy all the time, and I'm sick and I'm tired, and I had a headache for like 2 months. I'm going on about day 5 of actually feeling good. And so she drew my blood a couple weeks ago, and she ran a full panel test, and everything is perfect, except my lipids are all off. They're high. And I got her to test me to see if I'm still producing spike protein. And what do you think the results of that were?
That you're producing them. Show me the result. So that's the antibody test, the spike protein antibody test.
Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
So right here at the bottom, the SARS-CoV-2 spike AB and semiquant S, March 20, 2025.
Okay. Positive.
Right there.
Value more than 250. What is that? 250 U/ml. So how high is that?
Well, Peter McCullough has, I don't know if I have those screenshots right now, Cornelia, but I messaged my doctor and told her what the next steps were. That some people are actually getting exact numbers, and I've seen 10,000. And Peter McCullough said something about under 10,000, or if it's known toxic lot, according to the How Bad Is My Batch, and he actually names that website, then you should test like troponin levels and D-dimer for microclotting. And I sent all that stuff to my doctor. And
I mean, the value is greater than 250. That's not useful. So, I mean, well, what is it? Is it 10,000 or is it 251? I mean, you don't really have any idea what it is. All you know is it's greater than 250. What is that? You want to know the value, not just, oh, it's greater than 250.
Yep, that's all I got.
Now, I wanted to talk to you briefly about the following. So you belong to a group that is called the Front Row Joes. Tell me a bit about this.
Well, in 2016, President Trump ran for president, and by 2018, he was campaigning for 2020, and that was about the time that me and Randall Tom, a friend from Facebook who has since then passed away, we started a Facebook group. He became known as Front Row Joe.
And by the way, I have a couple of people here, actually many people, Front Row Joes. I want to thank you very much, Front Row Joes. These guys, they've come to over 200 rallies. They were at a rough one 2 weeks ago. I know I saw him sitting up front with a whole group of a lot of Front Row Joes, right? That was a nasty one. That was one. We lost a great person, Corey, firefighter, great man. And 2 people really badly hurt, but they're okay. They're getting better.
And so he and a dozen other people had jerseys made that are a salute to President Trump. And they are the ones that camp out overnight at the rallies and line up for days and attend all of Trump's rallies, and they've become famous. And I don't have, let me see, am I sharing full screen? Can you see my
No, I can't. I see only the pictures.
Okay, 1 second.
Yeah, but what I wanted to say, you were one of these or you belong to the Front Row Joes, and you went to some of his speeches and rallies, and he would always call out the Front Row Joes, because you were usually in the first row. So Trump, as we all know, he was very proud of Operation Warp Speed, which happened under his first presidency, and Warp Speed was this project when these toxic mRNA so-called vaccines were developed and manufactured at record speed, and because the PrEP Act declaration with no liability whatsoever for the manufacturers, distributors, et cetera, made this possible, because you cannot possibly develop anything safe in that ridiculous amount of time. So, and one of the reasons you took the vaccine was that Trump said that the vaccine was safe and effective, and you trusted him, correct?
I did. Like I said, that's one of the major factors in why I took the vaccine. So because I was a healthcare worker, I had about 3 days to decide if I wanted to take the vaccine. So it's January. It's the first week. It's January 2021. And Trump said, and he was campaigning, he said, Operation Warp Speed. He said he bought like 30 million doses from Moderna. And I had about 3 days to decide. And my agency called and they said, okay, it's being given at the health department. It's Operation Warp Speed. It's Trump. And I had about 3 days to decide. And so I took the shot, but it wasn't a vaccine. It was an experimental gene therapy. And now my immune system's scrambled and there's nothing anybody can do.
Right. So do you still trust Trump?
I don't know. All I have is hope. But like I said, with the way things are going, we haven't heard one peep out of him. Not one peep. CICP, nothing from RFK, not an update, not an email, not a letter. We haven't received anything. I think they're just waiting for that 1 year countermeasure date to run out so that they'll not have to pay out so many claims.
So when RFK became head of HHS and Trump became president, what were your expectations?
Well, obviously I'm hurt and I'm crushed that there's not even a czar. There's I mean, you see a little bit Marjorie Taylor Greene kind of has said a few things, but even that seems to have faded away. That I have the DVD, the Trump's Front Row Joes. I sent you a picture of this. You think Steve Bannon or Sean Spicer, who are producers of this movie, may have come out and said something by now. I don't know. I feel sick. I feel just sick. I'm pissed. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I feel betrayed. I have hope. I'm doing everything I can to try to tell my story to as many people as I can, and as many people that'll listen. And
Yes, and that's and good for you. I mean, it's amazing how you deal with it all. It's amazing how you have documented your whole odyssey of suffering. How you have all you collected so many data points, so many pictures. You can really show what happened to you, what happened to your body. And that is very, very valuable. But back to Trump, I think, I'm sure that he believed himself back then in 2021 that the shots were safe and effective. I mean, he took the shots himself. And I think it's pretty clear that he was conned. He was manipulated, he was misinformed, and he was not in charge. And it was a huge failure in leadership on his part. He didn't know what was going on. He had some sort of inkling that he was being conned and manipulated, but he wasn't able to. He lost control of the situation. In case he ever had control of the situation, he probably never had it, and he was never able to get control of it. And he clearly failed the American people during the so-called pandemic. Failed the American people in a gigantic way. It's a clear case of leadership failure, despite the fact that it would have been very difficult for anybody in his position to see through all of this and to do the right thing. He tried a little bit with Scott Atlas, who came to the White House in, I don't know, in August 2020, I think it was, but it was way too little and way too late. And no matter what, it was a big failure in his leadership. And that must be, I would think, something very difficult for him to come to terms with. But I haven't seen any, as you said, there's nothing from him talking about what was going on then and what he was thinking, and that he failed the American people. And I think
he said
they need to hear.
He said it was safe and effective. He said it.
Yes.
He said it. It was Trump. It was Moderna. It was the county health department. And I knew they were going to mandate it because I used to follow people like James Corbett in the Corbett Report. And I was through the whole pandemic. That's all I listened to. I knew about everything that they were, the vaccine passports and the lockdowns in China. Like I knew it was coming. I knew it was going to happen. So I took the vaccine, and the worst thing I've ever done.
Right. So, Melanie, I have to leave, unfortunately. I would love to talk longer, but I have to leave. But I want to finish up by saying that, realizing that perhaps nobody responsible will ever be prosecuted, will ever be held responsible, ever be punished for what they did and for the immense suffering and carnage they inflicted on the American population. And that is true worldwide, of course. It's not just true for the United States. But for the United States, certainly, and maybe in particular, because it had the highest death rate as a percentage of the population worldwide, I believe. Given that, when you look at this potential outcome that nobody will ever be punished for what they did to people like you and many, many, many others, what do you feel?
It's it's a lot of people that are played a part in making it happen. It's almost as if it had been planned for a long time. And I think right now the only recourse also that is out there is they're suing the manufacturers for false advertising, because they're saying that that a lot of claims that weren't true. And I would just believe there's so many rabbit holes and so many conspiracy theories out there that it was an intentional bioweapon and that it had to be. And I've seen evidence that supports that. And to just think for a thought that if this was intentional and it was on purpose and it is part of a plan for depopulation, I just think that it's really crappy that our current administration hasn't come out to say different.
Yes, I agree.
Where are
And
they?
not only, yeah, and also the fact that the entire regulatory framework is still in place to do exactly the same, that the PrEP Act that gives complete freedom of liability to anybody who manufactures toxic shots for people, that this PrEP Act is still in place and in place until 2029. And I hope, of course, and I still hope that RFK is going to declare the end of the PrEP Act and that the PrEP Act hopefully will be impeached. That's a big hope. But, if we wouldn't have people like you who are so persistent, despite the fact that you are ill, that you're not doing well, that you are so persistent to tell the world what has happened to you, and it's due to the incredible persistence of people like you, and also the desire, this really deep rooted desire of many, many Americans. I mean, pretty much anybody who had nothing to do with it, to see justice been done. That is the most important thing, and I really credit you for it. I think it's amazing, and I think you are a real inspiration.
I'm trying to stay
Real inspiration
alive.
to
I'm
people.
trying to stay alive. It's hard. My heart flutters every day. The more I do, the more tired I am. I'm sleeping 12 hours a night and I'm napping 2 hours a day, 10 to 12 hours a night, and I'm napping 2 hours a day. By the time this interview is going to be done and I get my makeup washed off, I'm going to feel like a wall hit me, and I'm going to be so tired, and I lose my words, and I got referred to a neurologist, and that was in January. They said, "Oh, we can get you in. Our first appointment's June." Nobody cares. These long COVID symptoms, this stuff, these things that are happening to us, and there's no explanation, and they're just washed. Everything's being washed under the rug. There's so many sick people. So many people have died. They're dying. They're dropping over and dying suddenly.
Yes, and the high number, the high number of of cancers and really rapidly developing cancers, turbo cancers among kids and really young kids that die at the age of 13 of pancreatic cancer, or 11-year-olds with colon cancer. It's unheard of. These are not cancers that kids would be getting. But you did a tremendous job. It was a wonderful interview, and I'm so grateful that we were able to do this. And you go and take a well-deserved rest, Melanie. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cornelia. We'll talk soon.